German Shepherd pack finds a frozen plane dash. What they uncover inside will change everything! Exclamation mark. One early morning, before the sun had risen high, the air in the mountain forest of America was freezing cold. Snow fell thickly, covering every nook and cranny. The entire forest was shrouded in silence, with only the sound of the German Shepherd pack's footsteps echoing in the stillness. These were trained rescue dogs, always ready for important missions. But today, the pack was not just on a regular search. Max, the alpha dog, led the way. With his ears perked, he listened to every small sound, every breath of the forest. The other dogs followed, eager and alert, but even they could not escape the cold that enveloped them. Suddenly, Max stopped. His sharp nose caught an unfamiliar scent, completely different from the usual smells of earth and vegetation. Something's wrong, Max thought to himself, then started moving toward a snow-covered valley. The other dogs stopped as well, observing Max's steps, sensing that something was unusual. Together, they moved forward toward a large, unfamiliar object buried beneath the thick snow. As they got closer, the pack realized that it wasn't a rock or a large chunk of ice, but something with a strange shape. Max began to dig through the snow, his sharp claws throwing large snow chunks aside. A massive frozen airplane gradually emerged from the snow. Fragments of the plane lay scattered around, as if it had been shattered long ago. The dogs began sniffing around the area. There were no signs of humans. No one was here. But why was the plane left in such a state? And why was it here, in the middle of this silent forest? Strange questions filled the dogs' minds. They couldn't understand, but one thing was clear: this was no ordinary airplane. Max stood still, eyeing the airplane with a look of suspicion. A few other dogs, like Bella and Rex, began circling, searching for any signs that could explain this mystery. Though they couldn't speak, the dogs all sensed something odd in the air. There must be something important inside, Max thought, and the pack decided to dig further. No one knew what awaited them ahead, but one thing was certain: this adventure would not be like anything they had experienced before. Max and the pack stood still, watching the airplane frozen beneath the thick layer of snow. Even though the snow had covered it for many years, the plane didn't look like the old Rex they had seen before. It seemed to have been well maintained, not just a pile of lifeless debris. The scattered fragments around it weren't from an accident, but appeared to be deliberate. It seemed as though someone had purposely hidden this plane here, in a remote forest. Max jumped up and used his powerful claws to dig through the snow. The more he dug, the more the plane became visible. But this wasn't just a simple airplane. The material that made up the body of the plane looked very unusual. It was unlike anything the pack had ever seen before. The dogs stopped, sniffing the air around them. They didn't just smell the wood and rusted metal. There was something else, a strange scent, like an unfamiliar type of metal. What is this? Bella, one of the smartest dogs in the pack, jumped up and sniffed around more closely. They could sense the abnormality, but could not explain it. The closer they got to the plane, the stronger the strange smell became, as if something very important was hidden inside. Meanwhile, Rex, the strong and cautious dog, began inspecting the area. He discovered an odd sign under the snow dash, a vehicle track, quite fresh, but not from a person. The track led straight to the plane, as if someone had moved this plane here very recently, but then left it without a word. Someone has been here and left, Max thought to himself. Even though the plane had been abandoned for a long time, all the signs pointed to intentional movement, not coincidence. Who had flown this plane? And why was it left in such a remote place? Unanswered questions began to swirl in the dogs' minds. They continued digging, searching for any trace that might explain what was happening. But when Max tried to move closer to the plane, he noticed something strange on its body, a faint mark, but clear, like a symbol or emblem the pack had never seen before. A feeling of curiosity and unease filled Max's heart. There was something very big hidden behind this airplane. And the closer the pack got, the more the mysteries became clear. But would they be able to uncover everything inside this plane? That question hung in the cold air of the forest, like an invitation, stirring an irresistible curiosity. The pack stood around the frozen airplane, their bright eyes reflecting the faint light from the overcast sky. Max felt a strong pull, as though an invisible force was drawing them closer. There was something significant waiting inside the plane. Each of the dog's claws gently scraped through the thick snow, but the plane remained still, unyielding. After a while, Max decided to approach one of the broken windows of the plane. The interior was still dark and cold. Though the plane had been abandoned for a long time, the traces inside made Max feel an odd sense of unease. It seemed as though everything had remained exactly as it was when the plane was left behind. Max bared his teeth and carefully used his muzzle to push a shard of broken glass aside. He could hear the sharp sound of the glass as it shifted. Bella, the quick-witted dog, immediately approached, trying to sniff out something suspicious from inside. Just then, a cold gust of wind swept through, making the whole pack shiver. But none of them could explain the unusual chill. The airplane door, although damaged, refused to open. Max signaled for Bella and Rex to help. Together, the three dogs used their claws to scratch at the metal door. The door creaked and groaned, but eventually it opened just a crack. From that gap, a cold mist wafted out, causing the dogs to pull back. But despite the cold, Max couldn't take his eyes off the dark space inside. Something was waiting for them. There is something very important in there, Max thought, determined to go in. Rex and Bella followed closely behind. A faint light from inside the plane shone through, as if beckoning them to explore further. Max crawled in first, followed by the other dogs. The air inside the plane was so cold that it made them shiver, but their curiosity drove them forward, unable to turn back. Inside the plane, everything was covered in a thin layer of ice, as if time had stopped here. The old seats, the suitcases with personal belongings still intact, all were enveloped in snow and frost. The pack began searching around, unsure of what would happen next. Suddenly, Max noticed something strange on the floor of the plane. It was an old laptop, covered in a thin layer of ice. Max approached it carefully, using his nose to touch the laptop. A shiver ran down his spine. This wasn't just any ordinary laptop. There was something very unusual hidden within it. As Max used his mouth to lift the laptop off the ground, a small piece of paper fell out from a crack. Bella quickly grabbed the paper and sniffed it. It had a series of strange symbols on it, like a code or an important message. These symbols made the pack feel even more intrigued. It seemed that what was hidden inside this plane wasn't just an old accident, but part of a much larger secret. Max and the pack realized that they weren't just exploring an old plane. The signs from the laptop and the piece of paper sparked a powerful curiosity. The whole pack could sense they had entered an adventure unlike anything they had ever experienced. The secrets were slowly unfolding, and everything around them now seemed surreal, full of challenges. What would they uncover inside this plane? And how would what they discovered change everything? As the pack continued to search in the cold interior of the plane, the strange feeling grew stronger. Max, leading the way, stepped into a small luggage compartment where old suitcases were piled up. The dogs could smell something unusual coming from these suitcases, as if something was hidden inside. Max carefully used his muzzle to open one of the suitcases. Inside, there were no ordinary belongings, only some documents and unclear objects. But what caught Max's attention the most was an old laptop buried among the clutter. It was frozen, covered in a thin layer of ice, yet still intact. Max gently picked it up with his mouth and brought it to a brighter spot. The other dogs began to gather around, sniffing and trying to make sense of what was happening. As Max carefully opened the laptop, a faint light flickered on from the screen, causing the dogs to squint. An odd feeling washed over them, as though this laptop might contain secrets that humans had never wanted to reveal. Even though Max didn't know how to use a computer, he could sense that this was no ordinary device. The screen lit up, displaying a series of documents, photos, and some complex encrypted codes that the pack could not understand. Max looked at the first few photos. They were blurry, but enough to show unfamiliar landscapes and strange places. These photos all had one thing in common. An unusual symbol appeared in each one, seeming to represent the logo of some organization. This organization appeared to be working on some kind of secret project, and the airplane might be part of that project. As Max scrolled through the documents on the laptop, a clear message appeared, almost as if warning someone. Project 17, do not disclose. Any information related to the project will be immediately deleted. These documents were filled with encrypted symbols the pack could not decode, but they sensed that, although they did not fully understand the content, these were certainly highly important pieces of information. A short code appeared on the screen. Bella, with her quick instincts, tried to point at the code with her muzzle. Max noticed that this code seemed like some kind of instruction, perhaps a way to reach a specific location or to further decipher the hidden secrets of this project. But the big question was, why were these documents hidden in an abandoned plane in the middle of a freezing forest? And why had no one come to retrieve them? The pack couldn't stop thinking about the things they had just uncovered. They knew that what they had found was not just a simple plane crash. This laptop, along with the documents inside, seemed to be part of something much bigger, a secret that humans had tried to conceal. But would they have the strength and intelligence to uncover all of these mysteries? Or would they stop there, unable to go any deeper into the truth? The dogs looked at each other, a mix of anxiety and determination evident in their eyes. They all knew one thing. What they had just discovered would change everything. And although they were not sure what dangers might await, the pack decided to continue exploring the airplane, not just out of curiosity, but for a bigger reason. This secret could change the world. After finding the laptop and the mysterious documents, the dogs could not tear their eyes away from what they had uncovered. Max stood among the papers, its brain working to piece together the puzzle. The photos, notes, and encrypted codes on the laptop were painting a picture that the dogs could not fully understand, but they felt a strong urge to investigate further. Bella, always the perceptive one, began to search around the plane. It carefully sniffed through the compartments, examining every nook and cranny, hoping to find more clues. Suddenly, it came across a small steel cabinet, covered in snow and ice, yet still intact. The strange feeling returned. This steel cabinet was definitely not an ordinary object. It was designed to protect something very important. Max approached, feeling a strong urge to open the cabinet. The pack worked together, using their claws and teeth to pry open the steel cabinet. After a difficult struggle, the cabinet finally creaked open, revealing a small box inside. The dogs stood still, their eyes focused on the box, as if waiting for something to happen. Max carefully opened the box. Inside was a small notebook, old but still in good condition. As Max gently turned the pages, it found handwritten notes documenting experiments and research projects. The content of the notes surprised Max and the pack. The pages did not just cover freezing technologies or strange materials, but also described biological experiments, surveillance technologies, and classified data management. These words made the dogs feel tense. It seemed they were uncovering a highly secretive military project, something no one was supposed to know about. Max looked back at the other dogs. What they were seeing was not a typical project. This was a research program the government had tried to hide, and what they had found could have a major impact on national security. The whole pack sensed that, although they could not fully understand everything in the notes, they had entered a very dangerous area. Max continued flipping through the pages, and suddenly, a map appeared. It was a map of an area near where the dogs had found the airplane, but the strange thing was that the locations marked on the map did not appear on regular maps. These spots were marked with special symbols, seemingly only understood by those involved in the project. The more they read, the more the dogs realized that the airplane was not just the site of a typical crash. It was part of a secret military project, and those involved in the project had mysteriously disappeared. Max felt a growing anxiety in its chest, as it seemed there were still things hidden that they had not uncovered. The notes in the notebook were only a small part of a much larger story. However, One undeniable thing was that this airplane contained incredibly valuable information. And one big question was lingering in the dogs' minds: who left these documents? And why was the airplane abandoned in the middle of the forest with no one coming to retrieve it? Would the pack have the strength and determination to continue uncovering these secrets? Or would they become caught up in a dangerous game they could not escape? The dogs could clearly feel that what they had uncovered was just the beginning. Every clue, every note was leading them into a dead end full of danger and mystery. But none of the dogs could stop. They were determined, and what would happen next? They didn't know, but one thing was certain: this adventure would change everything. The dogs sensed a change in the atmosphere. As they continued exploring the airplane and the documents inside, a feeling of tension and unease filled the air. Max no longer felt simple curiosity, but instead a heightened sense of alertness. The discoveries they were making were becoming increasingly dangerous. The documents on the laptop and in the notebook weren't just ordinary research. They were part of a bigger plan that could threaten everyone's safety. Rex, with its instinct for danger, began moving around the airplane, sniffing every nook and cranny. It sensed that something wasn't right. The air inside the airplane was changing. It no longer just carried the cold scent of snow and ice, but also a metallic smell, as if someone was getting closer. "Pack, something is wrong," Max signaled for everyone to stop. The dogs immediately froze, looking around with suspicious eyes. The surrounding forest remained silent, but the quiet only made the dogs feel more uneasy. Something bigger was approaching. A soft sound echoed, as if there were footsteps. Max tensed and listened. It wasn't the sound of wind or snow falling. These were real footsteps, someone's footsteps. Max looked around, but there was no one else in sight, just the dogs and the airplane standing still in the silent forest. But the feeling of fear kept growing stronger. "We can't stay here any longer," Max thought. Suddenly, something glinted in the snow from afar. The dogs immediately grew alert, preparing themselves. Max signaled for them to move carefully, heading toward the object glimmering in the snow. As they got closer, the dogs felt an increasing sense of unease. And then, from the darkness, a flash of light flickered, as if something was watching them. Out of nowhere, from a hidden corner, a sleek black military vehicle appeared. It moved quickly, gliding past the trees without making a sound. No dog could clearly see what was going on, but the presence of the vehicle was unmistakable. Max stopped, tense, observing carefully. Military vehicles like that usually came with danger, and if someone was looking for the airplane, the dogs were surely on the right track. This isn't a coincidence, Max thought. Someone deliberately hid this airplane, and now they are coming back to search for it. The dogs silently retreated into the shadows, trying not to make a sound. They started running into the forest, away from the military vehicle and the airplane. But in Max's mind, the questions kept spinning. Why was this airplane so important? Why were these people searching for it? And could the dogs escape this danger without being detected? Max stopped for a moment, glancing back at the airplane. It felt like a massive danger was closing in, and the pack could not continue their journey without being better prepared. However, something inside the airplane remained unexplored. The secrets that had not been revealed were still waiting for the dogs ahead. But would they be able to uncover the truth without getting caught in the trap that these people had set? Max looked ahead, and he couldn't shake the feeling that this adventure had only just begun. The shadow of danger still hung in the air, and the pack knew they could not turn back now. The dogs ran through the forest, their footsteps blending with the howling wind in the freezing air. Max and his companions didn't dare stop, didn't dare look back. The feeling of worry and tension surrounded them. What they had discovered in the airplane and what they had just witnessed with the military vehicle made them realize that this adventure was far more complicated than they had first imagined. After running silently for a while, Max signaled for the pack to stop. They halted in the darkness of the forest, panting heavily but careful not to breathe too loudly. Every small noise made them jump. Max looked at Bella and Rex, then spoke in a low voice. We cannot keep running like this. We need to know the truth. The dogs understood Max's meaning. They had come too far to just turn back now. Max turned to look back at the airplane, where the strange aircraft still sat motionless among the snow and ice. Although the sound of the military vehicle was no longer present, the dogs knew the danger was still out there. They couldn't stop now. We have to go back in one more time, Max decided. I feel like there is something really important we have not uncovered yet. With strong determination, the pack turned around and headed back toward the airplane. This time, they were more alert than ever. As they entered the airplane again, the air was as cold as before, but there was a strange silence in this place. The dogs made their way straight to the old laptop Max had found earlier. The documents were still there, untouched. Max opened the laptop again, and this time, the screen lit up in an even stranger way. It displayed dense, encrypted data that the dogs had been unable to decode before. A paragraph appeared, and it seemed to be talking about something very important. Project 17 is complete. All traces must be erased, and all involved parties must be eliminated. The surveillance system is ready. The dogs could not understand all of it, but Max could feel that this was why the airplane had been left behind and why people were searching for it. Project 17. This seemed like a large-scale experiment, a secret that, if exposed, could cause significant changes in the world. Suddenly, an odd sound came from outside. The dogs turned and looked. A group of soldiers, equipped with surveillance devices and weapons, was approaching the airplane. Clearly, they knew about the airplane's presence and weren't about to let the dogs escape. Max and the rest of the pack knew they did not have much time left. They had to leave immediately. Max signaled the pack to move quickly, looking for an escape route. But just then, one of the soldiers spotted them. "Dogs, they are in there," one of the soldiers shouted loudly. The pack of dogs began running, leaping over ice and snow, desperately trying to escape the group of soldiers. But in Max's mind, the big question still echoed. What is Project 17? And are we being dragged into a bigger battle that we cannot escape from? The dogs raced through the forest, but the soldiers kept close behind. They moved quickly like shadows, not giving the dogs a chance to escape. Max understood that this was no longer just a simple chase. This was a confrontation, and if they did not fight with everything they had, the truth about the project would remain buried forever, and those behind it would continue manipulating the world without anyone ever knowing. Finally, as the soldiers' apostrophe footsteps grew closer and closer, Max signaled for the pack to run into a denser part of the forest. They had only one choice: fight or keep running. This battle wasn't just about survival. It was a fight to uncover a secret that had been hidden for years, a secret that could change the world. The dogs couldn't turn back. They had made their decision, and their story was far from over. Thank you all for watching until the end. If you enjoyed the video, do not forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss out on the best stories. See you in the next one.